pushes the extractors forward and frees them from the projections on the block. The buffer spring now forces the block up slightly. In this way, the block partly covers the cartridge case and prevents it from falling out of the chamber. Now let's see all this in slow motion on the gun. The breech is opened, the block rises to the loading position, a fresh cartridge is loaded, and the block rises to the masking position. The rest of the closing motion is done by hand. We'll deal now with the firing mechanism. By the way, numbers 1, don't forget to try all your spare breech and firing mechanism parts to see if they fit and work correctly. This mechanism is of the percussion type, the main parts being a striker and mainspring. First of all, there must be some means of cocking the striker. This is done automatically when the breech is opened, as you see here. Watch how this is done in detail. The breech is closed again. As the crank rotates, the striker is cocked by the train of cocking levers. Look once again. The striker compresses the spring in its rearward movement. The striker is now cocked, but we must stop it from moving forward when the breech is closed. Let's look at the mechanism from above to see how this is done. When the striker is fully cocked, a sear is forced from right to left by a spring. This prevents the striker moving forward. Once again, and you'll see that even without its spring, the sear is made to work by the inclined surfaces of the cocking sleeve and sear. To fire the gun, the firing lever on the left side of the cradle must be pulled. By means of intermediate gearing, the sear will this time be pushed from left to right. Watch this happening. The firing lever is pulled. The striker is freed and travels forward under the action of its spring. The firing pin at the front end of the striker protrudes through a hole in the block and fires the cartridge. Should the gun misfire, the striker can be recocked by hand and another attempt made to fire without opening the breech. Now we must look into the question of safety. This means that we must not be able to fire the gun if the breech is not fully closed. We get safety in 3 ways on the 25 pounder. Firstly, the control lever of the firing train is not opposite the recess in the breech block and can't move till the block is closed. Secondly, the forward movement of the striker is fouled by the train of cocking levers until the crank is in the fully home position. Lastly, the striker is not in line with the cap of the primer until the breech is fully closed. Apart from these safety arrangements, there's a safety catch. If the gun is loaded and the striker cocked, it can be set to safe. This locks the sear to the striker case. It's important that at the moment of firing, the firing pin should have the right amount of protrusion beyond the face of the breech block. If it hasn't, misfires may occur. The number 1 is responsible for seeing that the protrusion test is carried out before firing. The buffer is removed and the breech block lowered out of the breech ring. This will cock the striker. The striker is now released, its forward movement being restrained by holding the cocking handle. The number 16 protrusion gauge is used for checking the protruding firing pin. The minimum should foul and the maximum should clear. If the firing pin doesn't pass the test, it should be changed. Now let's look at the gun and see how all the component parts we've described to you function in action. Right.